All right, my testimony. I just did it and it got erased. Okay, yeah, I was born in Mississippi in a very satanic family that owned pretty much the whole town. My mom left my father about the age of 5, and she came to Dallas and became a Jehovah's Witness. I was always treated very differently all throughout my life. My father had, you know, basically tried to teach me how to use drugs and drink and smoke cigarettes and all this stuff. And um, basically, like, my mom gave me a bunch of books that she should not have given, a teenager about drugs. And I was disfellowshipped, even though I wasn't baptized, from the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I left home at an early age after they'd sent me to the mental hospital for suicide attempts and all this stuff. And I was always protected by God, like, heavily. Basically, like, everywhere I went, like, I'd gone to Mexico one time, and I'm sure they were trying to sacrifice me there, but the guy told me that he was going to kill me, but he thought I was really cool, whatever. And I got led up to Canada with a girl that I was dating, and got off in the woods out there in Canada where her ex-boyfriend was with us, and we went for a walk to go get saplings for a sweat lodge. Well, little did I know, he was planning on chopping me up with a hatchet. So that's, those are a couple of occasions where the Lord had just completely protected me. Even though I was a drug addict, I was heavily into all kinds of stuff. But I made it back home, and from Canada I went to Memphis, Tennessee, where there's one point where I was in a hotel room and I was doing drugs, and I kept seeing somebody outside the window with a gun, and I was freaking out. And when I went to leave the hotel room, I got in the truck, and this dude in an orange suit, which actually I just saw somebody in an orange suit over here, but I'm not even worried about it because, like I said, the Lord's got me in this situation. Anyway, he popped his head out of the door next door and said, "You did pretty good." And I thought that was really weird, but it definitely helped put some things in perspective and connect dots looking back. Well, from there I went back to Austin, Texas. I'd spent a lot of time here, and while here in Austin, I believe in 2000 or 2001, I got really addicted to heroin. And after going to jail and just basically being protected throughout a severe heroin addiction, I stole a lot. I told a lot of lies, but I always had a good heart. Well, the fast forward, I meet my brother. He says he's my brother, right? My biological father's son was just from another girlfriend he had, which I think that's a lie. I think really it was my cousin. But this particular guy, like, when I first moved here, he asked me, have you ever seen the movie Rosemary's Baby? And I had, but I really didn't get it. And he also asked me if I read the book 1984, which I had while I was in prison at the age of 17. The whole time I was growing up, man, there were a lot of situations where I was sure I was being tested, and I always tried to do the right thing, but I got set up a lot. I got set up a whole lot. And, there's a couple times, in my drug addiction where I'd been pulled over and they had a lot of things on me, stuff to get me thrown in prison for the rest of my life. But I always got protected by the Lord. And, well, finally he got me off of the heroin and got me in the methadone clinic. And throughout the methadone, I know that I was being targeted this whole entire time, my whole life, but it was a satanic targeting. It wasn't like people following me or anything like this, but looking back, like, every friend that I ever made, they were all witches. And I'd been offered witchcraft, and I wasn't interested in it until I was like 43, and nothing was going right. Everything I tried to do, I just failed. And I had been saved at one time when I was in jail. I went in and I gave my life to the Lord, and like I felt the Holy Spirit on me, and I didn't understand at that point until like I was 43, when I finally did try a little bit of witchcraft, and like I opened up the floodgates. And man, at one time I had looked up a friend of mine who I knew was high up in the OTO, and I wanted to learn about witchcraft because I was just studying it all by myself, and just immediately jumped into tarot cards and all kinds of stuff. I'd been getting into meditation and yoga, but I still had this thought in my mind that there was a God. I knew there was God because he had protected me so much. I remember one time I was on a job site, and my boss, he was a witch too, and I just didn't know it. And he told me, he said, "Don't let that ladder fall on you." And this was a huge 40-foot ladder that was made of steel, and it had never fallen since I'd been working for him. Well, when he left for lunch, I was standing there, and this thing fell, and it landed like literally like this. Boom. And I turned around and I was like, wow, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. I mean, there's been so many times like that where just close call after close call, and Jesus had me, and I didn't know it was Jesus, but the whole time I was going through this yoga and meditation and all this, I was looking for God because I wanted to know really who he was. So I went to like the oldest of the religions, the old Chinese stuff, and thought, as older you get, the closer you'll get to the truth. Well, after I felt this spirit enter me, after I looked up my friend who was in the OTO, I felt it was like electricity shooting through my body. It didn't feel like when the Holy Spirit came upon me. It just felt like, man, it was the craziest thing I ever felt. Well, within 2 hours, I started studying this meditation book I had about being enlightened and what happens when you die, because I decided that I'd failed at this life, so I was going to kill myself that day. So I started looking at these meditations as what you do, about, man, I can't believe I'm talking about this. I was just doing these meditations, and then I finally got the courage, and I left the hotel where I was staying at, because we had recently, my wife and her mom had gotten into a fight, and we were basically there taking care of her mom, but like she just turned on us one day, and I knew she was involved with this gang stalking, and it was all a setup. Well, we go to this hotel room, I get into this stuff, and I leave the hotel room, and I go and I get my last meal, so I think, and I sit down and I eat where my wife worked at, and didn't tell her what I was about to do. And then I left, and I just walked up to this really tall bridge that was close to where we were staying at, and I'd walked over this bridge a couple different times. I think those times were they were trying to get me to do it, and I didn't do it. But this time I got up to the wall, and I climbed up on it, and I looked down, and like, I mean, this thing was high. It was like, I'm sure it was like 90 feet. I say 90 feet, I've never measured it, but man, every time I see a bridge this high, I just am amazed that I lived through this. But I took a deep breath and I jumped. And right before I hit the ground, I remember the ground coming up close to me, and everything, I don't remember hitting the ground, but I remember just like as soon as I hit the ground, I opened my eyes and I was like, oh my God, I'm not dead. And like this guy, I guess he'd seen me do it. I'm sure he was on the phone with somebody and seen me land on the ground, and he called an ambulance, and they said they never picked a live body up from there before. And at that point, man, my targeting was so heavy. Everywhere I went, I could not get away from these people. It didn't matter what I did, but I had been doing these like protection rituals that I'd learned in the book against psychic attacks, and I was once I was in the hospital, I was still doing this stuff. Oh, I forgot. There's this one part where before I jumped off the bridge, they had me out. They made me leave. They just convinced me they were going to do all this horrible stuff to me and convinced me to leave. And so I left and was like running around being chased by gang stalkers. And I had holed up in this little wooded area by a train track, and I remember like laying there waiting on the train to go. Every 15 minutes this little train would go by, and I would say, okay, next time I'm just gonna stick my head under it. Well, I didn't do that, and the next day where I was sleeping at, like I look over and there's a Jack Chicks track. I don't know if y'all ever seen those, but there's a Jack Chicks track, and it said, before you die, you need to be saved by Jesus Christ and all this. And something I felt this wave of comfort come over me, and I confessed with my mouth to the Lord that I wanted to be saved, and that I knew that I had wrecked my life. I'd been very bad to people, and I'd been really dishonest. But little did I know, at that point in time, He was already working on me. He had got me off of heroin, and had got me off the methadone, and this alerted the authorities that I was constantly being followed around by feds, and they kept staging these things around me. They'd stage this stuff, and then they'd come up to me like, "Did you see this thing over here happen?" And I'd say, "Yeah." I described the person that did it, and they go, okay. And a lot of times people would tell me, they try to ask me to do something, and I wouldn't do it, and then they'd say, "Okay, I was just testing you." So I've been being tested this whole time. Well, fast forward to the day I'm laying in this hotel room, and I had a broken pelvis. I had plates and screws, and both my feet were destroyed, and I had a new knee replaced, and had my left hand rebuilt. And I was at a really, really dark part of my life, and I kept getting these attacks, and I kept feeling them, and I'd try to do these rituals that I'd learned, but they weren't working. They weren't working at all. And then so one day I just said, "Jesus, will you help me?" And like I just felt relief. I felt that a change, and it lasted. And I didn't feel as under attack. But at this point in time, I was majorly under attack, like demonically. I was still having some drug issues here and there, but I was really trying to get my life clean. Well, that was weird. Anyway, I was trying to get clean, and I still struggle with cigarettes, but like he's gotten me to where like I haven't drank in a couple days, and I don't get drunk anymore. I mean, I still drink occasionally, and like everything is changing, and I'm watching so much happen where like my heart was hardened by the Lord. Because I realized that everybody was in on this thing my whole life. They all knew about it, and I didn't. It was exactly like Rosemary's Baby, and I didn't know what to do, man. I was being followed around, and people just acted weird to me. Some of them, they would be like really drawn to me, but they'd have like friends that would just hate my guts, and I never done anything to them. I could never figure it out. Well, that's just because like when you have the Holy Spirit and when you belong to the Lord, because believe me, the whole world is satanic. As much as they hide it, they always have to tell you with some way, in a symbol or a number or something. But all is from God. Everything is from God. Satan just copies and counterfeits. My story is pretty nuts. I mean, I can only just sum it up in a few minutes. It's like 14 minutes right now. I can only sum it up with the gang stalking is demonic, and it's been going on since I was a small child, and I didn't know. But my advice to anybody who is going through this is to stay close to the Lord. He's always had you this whole time. He will not let you go, even if you make mistakes. you're not perfect. He's the only perfect person. So always keep the Lord first. You know, I mean, we're by nature selfish. We want food. We want to be liked. We want to create. You know, these people who have given themselves over to witchcraft, they have to do rituals to get a certain thing because they don't have it. But you know, God's children are naturally inclined to be very good at everything they do. You know, and that's I'm good at pretty much anything that I put my hands on. But with the gang stalking, man, they go behind me, and when I make a mistake, it gives legal action for Satan to attack, and they just destroy everything I do. You know, and it's the police. You know, the police are run by Satan. I had a gang stalker neighbor where my gang stalking started to become overt. And I remember one time, and he was like a blood gang member, and he was pretty high ranking. He like ran that whole little part of the block there. And I thought he was trying to kill me, which actually he was. And I remember one time he was like threatening me, and I stood up to him and I told him, I don't know where this came from. And I said, man, I got angels all around you. There is nothing that you can do to me. You can't touch me. And you know, looking back on things like this, I know for a fact this was, you know, the Spirit speaking through me, letting him know that there is nothing that they can do. So all you real targeted individuals, I mean, I don't know if this is some kind of a program to test it on everybody, but there are some of us who actually belong to God and are here for a purpose and a reason. And mine is to get my hands dirty out on the streets and try to help these addicts and pray for them. I've seen so many miracles since I have been homeless again, and I've seen a lot of people actually come to the Lord. And the more that you do this, the heavier your targeting is, you know. But right now I pray for each and every targeted individual. I pray the Holy Spirit down around them. I pray for a hedge of protection around their minds and their heart and their bodies, and that they learn to love these gang stalkers, and they try to warn these gang stalkers of Christ. And that's about the best I can do for a testimony. I thought about writing it down and then doing it, but there's too much. It would take hours and hours and hours. So God bless each and every one of you. I hope y'all are having a good day. All right, y'all take care.